that feeling when you pull on your favorite workout gear? It's like you're instantly ready to conquer a run or a yoga class. But what if the very clothes that make you feel so healthy are hiding a pretty weird secret? Yeah, today we're talking about something called forever chemicals and your favorite activewear.
So let's just get right to it with the big kind of scary question. Could these things be in your go-to leggings? The clothes you sweat in, the fabric that's right up against your skin, could it really contain compounds that last, well, forever? This isn't just some random thought experiment. Nope. It's actually at the center of a major new investigation.
And there you have it. The Attorney General of Texas has officially launched a probe into one of the absolute biggest names in athleisure, Lululemon. The whole thing is about whether their clothes have these controversial chemicals, which go by the acronym PFAS. And just like that, this one investigation has thrown this entire topic right into the spotlight. Okay, so let's break this investigation down. It's really a classic showdown, you know? You've got the government making claims, and you've got a huge company pushing back. Understanding both sides here is really the key to figuring out what it all means for you and me, the people buying this stuff. So here's the core of the fight right here. On one side, you have Texas basically saying, hey, Lululemon, you market yourself to health-conscious people. If you have PFAS in your gear, that's misleading. But on the other side, Lululemon is saying, whoa, hold on. We already phased that stuff out last year. It was only in a tiny fraction of our water-repellent items anyway, and everything we sell is totally safe by global standards. So it's this big disagreement over what was used, when, and what customers should even know to look for.
All right, we keep throwing this term PFAS around, and you might be sitting there thinking, what in the world are these things? So let's zoom out for a second and get a handle on what we're actually talking about when we say forever chemicals.
So PFAS isn't just one thing. It's a huge family of thousands of different man-made chemicals. And they have this one incredible superpower. They are amazing at repelling stuff. Heat, oil, stains, water, you name it, PFAS can find it off. And you can imagine, that makes them incredibly useful for all sorts of products. And because they're so useful, they're everywhere. I'm not kidding. Think about your life. This stain-resistant coating on your couch, that nonstick pan you used this morning, the wrapper on your burger, and yep, that waterproof jacket in your closet. PFAS have just quietly become a part of everything. So why the spooky nickname, Forever Chemicals? It's not just for drama. It's because the chemical bonds in these substances are so incredibly strong that they just don't break down. Not in the soil, not in our water. And here's the kicker, not in our bodies. They just stick around and build up. They are, for all practical purposes, forever. And if you're thinking, oh, that's some niche environmental problem, I've got some news for you. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, estimates that pretty much every single American, around 99%, has PFAS in their blood. No, that's not a typo. 99%. This isn't somebody else's issue. It's inside of us. Okay, so they're in us. The next, and obviously most important question is, are they hurting us? And this, my friends, is where things get really complicated. It is so important to separate what the science actually knows from what people are just worried about. You know, our understanding of this stuff has been changing pretty fast. Back in the 2010s, the US started phasing out the main long-chain PFAS because of health risks. So the industry adapted and switched to short-chain versions, which they thought would be less of a problem. But as we're seeing with new studies on drinking water, the concerns are definitely still there. The biggest takeaway is that for most of these thousands of chemicals, scientists just don't have the final word yet on long-term health effects. Now, some research has connected PFAS exposure to some really serious stuff. But, and this is a really important but, you've got to look at the fine print. Most of these links are tied to ingesting PFAS, like through contaminated water. And a ton of the science is still based on animal studies or has just given really mixed results in people. So the scientific jury is very much still out. And that brings us right back to our workout clothes. I mean, we're not eating our leggings, right? So what's the actual risk from just wearing them? Is this something that can get into our bodies through our skin? Well, according to the experts, the answer seems to be probably not a big one. This quote from a toxicologist, Dr. Alex LeBeau, puts it pretty bluntly. The general thinking right now is that skin contact just isn't a major way these chemicals get into your system, especially when you compare it to other sources. So look, while the risk from your clothes might be low, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be an informed shopper.
I mean, who doesn't want to know what's in their stuff? So let's get into some practical tips you can actually use next time you're out shopping.
All right, here are 3 really simple clues to look for. First, check for brand names like GORE-TEX or Teflon. Those are known PFS materials. Second, just pay attention to the buzzwords. If a tag is screaming about being moisture-wicking, waterproof, or stain-resistant, there's a higher chance PFS is involved. And third, your best bet, honestly, is to actively look for a PFS-free label, especially one that's been verified by an independent group.
It's all about keeping things in perspective, you know? It's awesome to be a smart consumer and to know what you're buying. But at the end of the day, experts agree that the biggest way we're all exposed to these chemicals, it's not our clothes, it's our food, and even more so, our drinking water. And that kind of leaves us with this final, much bigger question. As a person, you can check labels, you can make different choices, but when these chemicals are literally in our soil, our water, our air, our own bodies, how much can one person's shopping habits really change? It makes you stop and think about where our personal responsibility ends and where the responsibility of the huge companies that make and use these forever chemicals begins.